Welcome to Tog Tips. My name's Ryan. I'm a photographer here in the County of Newell, and today we're going to talk about lenses. Lenses to me are the most important part of your photography experience. Now I know the camera companies, they're going to say, no, it's the bodies. You got to buy the latest, greatest bodies. Nope. Spend your money on lenses. Usually with your DSLR, you're going to get what's called a kit lens, or maybe two lenses in a kit. And those are usually your start-out lenses. They're going to have apertures between 3.5 to 5.6. And then, these are really good lenses to learn on, to master. And then once you're ready to step up and spend some real money, then you can start getting things like prime lenses. This is a 50mm prime. It's an f2.8. Now I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you. The F values refer to aperture. So when I think of aperture, the best way to explain it is about eyes. Like we know when we enter a bright room, what happens with our eyes? The iris gets smaller. When we go into a dark room, the iris in our eyes gets bigger. That's essentially what's happening inside your lens. The iris is getting wider and smaller depending on the amount of light that's coming in and hitting your sensor. So with something like a prime, like this 50 prime, it's a 2.8, f2.8, I can have that really wide to the f2.8, or I can narrow it right down to, I think this one goes up to about f22. So it's a very narrow iris. And it's the same application in photography as when you're walking into a room. If you're going into a bright area, you're going to want an f-stop that's higher. You're going to want a smaller circle. When you go into a darker room, you're going to want to have the opposite. Just makes sense, right? So with your more expensive lenses, like this one or even this sucker here, they're both f2.8, and that's the starting point of how big you can make that circle. And these lenses, they can cost a lot of money. They can go from a couple $100s to a couple $1,000, and you really are getting what you pay for. And you can stick a very expensive lens on a very inexpensive body. My daughter, who's 8 years old, has had a camera in her hands for 5 years. I can put this lens on her little DSLR and it's going to produce amazing results. And that's the same thing with whatever body you choose. You can have something that's fairly new or fairly old, and it's the lenses is where it's at. Now, people will say, where am I going to use a great big lens like what you got sitting on your camera here? Well, this is great for shooting things like sports. I'll shoot a lot of hockey with this lens. This is a range from 80 to 200, and it allows me to capture that movement. It's a very fast lens. It lets me capture that movement, plus it lets me bring in a lot of light. If you've been to a hockey rink, a lot of them don't have very good light. We're kind of blessed here in Brooks with a rink that does have awesome lighting, so I can get a higher shutter speed and capture that action a lot easier. And it may be the scene you're looking for. If you want to freeze that action so you can see like the hockey stick and the puck just perfectly in focus, or you may want to have that blurred to produce more of an action shot. And that's what you're allowed with lenses like this. Now your kit lens, because it starts at a higher aperture number, that circle, remember, is going to be smaller. You're not going to be able to get enough light in. So for something like shooting sports, particularly hockey, I would recommend starting at something at least an f2.8, if not, a wider aperture if you can. But lenses, it's all over the map. It's basically one of those things you spend money on once you've chosen your genre. If you're a portrait photographer, you might go with a prime like this, a 50, or primes come in various sizes. They start at 28, they can go up to 35, 50, 135, it's endless. If you're a landscape photographer, you might go with a wide angle lens, something that's maybe 14mm or something, so you can get that whole scene in focus. And if you're shooting sports, or say you wanted to shoot your blue jay in your backyard, you might want to go with a zoom like this. I can get that range. So, the field is kind of endless and limitless when it comes to lenses, and it can be kind of mind-boggling until you narrow down what exactly you want to shoot. Again, if you're kind of shooting everything, that kit lens is fine. You can get a zoom that's, say, from 55 to 300, and that's getting a very wide field of what you can shoot. yeah, so the lenses are limitless. Thanks for tuning in to Talk Tips today, and remember, the only way you're going to improve is to pick up that camera and shoot.